I won't take up a lot of your time. I know most of you are probably spending a lot of your days online through doing some school through the computer to the best of your abilities. And I think the last thing you want to do is be stuck inside staring at the computer screen some more. But like I said, half hour of the material and then open up for some questions. Okay. The purpose of today, talk about goal setting for sure. But as you can see by the title, we're going to do this through an approach that's called the WOOP. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But once again, I want to keep everything simple, to the point, and accessible enough so that you can learn this and then start applying it more consistently. All right, so to get started, I mean, the big part of this is really for you to start looking at how you can take some responsibility for your mental game. Okay, at the end of the day, coaches and support are here to help you with the technical components, the tactical components, the physical side of the game. But not often enough do we spend time working on our mental game specifically. And this is where these concepts start to come into place with the mental game. And you need to do this yourself, though. Okay, you can most definitely ask for help and for some support, but at the end of the day, you are the one that knows how you feel. You are the one that has an understanding of what you are thinking or feeling at any given time. So for you, the mental game is your responsibility. Now, when you look at the physical game, when you're looking at other components, you have other coaches that can see what's going on, right? Your movement, your performances in all those different areas. But it's hard for coaches to really get a sense of what's going on internally with you. Now, they can tell through body language, maybe through interactions and through your behavior. But for the most part, they can't read your mind, right? They can't get inside and really understand what's going on. So this is where you can take responsibility for yourself. And hopefully you learn a few things here today that allow you to do that. Now, just bear with me here. I'm curious as to why I have a green line on the screen, but that's not too worrisome. I guess we can just ignore that as best of our ability. So let's continue on here. So if we look at this process, we have a top-down system, right? So the brain controls the body delivers the skill. That's a very generic, simplified way to understand what's really going on when we're performing as an athlete. But if you really look at this at a deeper level, it's really important to understand that the brain, it always wins. The brain is controlling everything that we do. So if we can learn some mental skills like we are today on how to goal set or some mental tools, we will then be able to manage our mind, control our body, and hopefully deliver the skill. And getting even further into this model or diagram, whatever you'd like to call it, you can probably think of examples of players who have a really strong ability when it comes skill wise, or they have a great body. And sometimes for those players, they're really consistent in practice because they have that great body, they have that great skill. But then when it comes to the game, when it comes to pressure, they do not have the ability to manage their mind and aren't able to perform. Okay, and then you can think of vice versa. There are probably players that you played with who have maybe an average body type, maybe have average skill or below average skill when it comes to practice. Practice is very difficult. The game is very challenging. But then when it comes to pressure situations or when it comes time for them to perform, they have a really good ability to manage their mind. So at the end of the day, we need to work on all these areas. Typically, a sports psych might start a presentation, asking the group, what percentage of the game is mental? And, some of them are digging for you to say, 80% of the game, 90% of the game, 70% of the game is mental. And there's no scientific data that supports any of those claims. And really it's counterintuitive and kind of goes against really what development is about. So at the end of the day, yes, the mental game is important, but you need to take every component of the game and put 100% into it, right? You need to be committed to the mental side. You need to be committed to the physical side and the technical side. So But an understanding for you to start to grasp these concepts, it's great that you can get into it in this capacity. So manage the mind, control the body, deliver the skill. Right now, we might be going through these different zones, uh, just based with what's going on in the world, the whole COVID pandemic, the unknowing of the future, and all the other challenges that we have, in our lives right now, whether it be trying to keep up with school, trying to hang out with friends, trying to have some normalcy of what life was like before all this started. And so there might be times when we're going through these different zones. We might be in the panic zone for a little bit, which is indicated by feeling stressed, maybe being exhausted, feeling tense, anxious, maybe annoyed, maybe not really motivated to do much. Sometimes we get into the comfort zone where you're like, oh, this is kind of nice. Don't really have to do much, take care of school, gonna kick my feet up, maybe play some video games a bit more than I used to, maybe not really work on developing as a goaltender. And at the end of the day, those things are all fine and acceptable. Right now, there's a culture, I feel like, with this pandemic, that it's a productivity contest for individuals trying to prove who can do more in this challenging time. And in reality, let's be really good at what you have access to and be really good at what you can do. No one's forcing you to do stuff, because it's such a unique time. But at the end of the day, we try and we really want you to live in this ideal zone of this stretch zone where you're still feeling challenged in regards to developing as an individual and as a player. So whether that's developing a physical side by going for a run, the technical side, doing some ball work, maybe you can get the rollerblades on and go out, do what you can do. Maybe it's even stretching yourself when it comes to reading a book or to exercising your brain in a way that you might not be used to. And not necessarily a school book, but just a book about, sure, it could be about hockey, it could be an autobiography, but trying to maybe do something that you normally wouldn't be able to do because you'd be in school for whatever 6 hours a day, then going to the rink and then doing all these other components to your development. So we want to try to stay in the stretch zone as much as possible. Maybe trying to develop an ability physically that you weren't able to before, maybe doing a certain amount of push-ups, who knows. But we want to strive for being in the stretch zone as much as possible, because right now we're really living in times where we're in this panic area, and then there's times where we might get into this comfort area. So we want to try to live in this nice stretch zone as much as possible. So at the end of the day, what we're talking about is our behaviors and our actions. Okay, so when looking at behavior, the definition right in front of us, the way in which one acts or conducts oneself, and especially towards others. So you can think about over the last couple of weeks, since everything has occurred, how have you been behaving? How have your actions been? Okay, what have you been doing? Have you been doing anything with purpose? Have you been doing anything to better yourself as an individual, as a person? What have you done in regards to school, maybe? Like, what actions are you taking? So these are things that we can manage as individuals, but sometimes it becomes difficult when there are a lot of external distractions, okay, or external things that are out of our control, such as this pandemic, which has shut down a lot of sports, the training, or except for UFC. UFC is going on, but that's about it. So right now, we can't do anything about that, right? It's not like you can go to your local city and ask them to kindly open up the rink to let you go for a skate. That's out of your control, right? All these health restrictions are out of your control. So we need to look at, okay, what can I simply control right now, and what can I simply focus on? And a lot of those are your behaviors, your reactions, and your responses during this time. And just keep it simple, right? Let's keep things simple right now. So to break down this whole goal setting, we need to understand what you need to be working on day in and day out. And for a lot of you, you spend a ton of time on practice, whether that be on the ice, off the ice, in your head, going through imagery, imagining yourself performing or developing a skill. But what that really is the process. Okay, we spend a lot of time on the process, day in and day out. So talking about the process, yeah, a lot of us get stuck on the outcome, specifically on wins and losses, really evaluating how we are doing based on that, with losing sight of am I doing what I need to do day in and day out to be successful, or give myself the best chance to win? And the process doesn't have to be complicated. It's actually quite simple. It's just a matter of being consistent with it. And there's that fancy word, or that nice word everyone likes to hear, is consistency. So whether you're developing a new skill or refining a skill that you're strong with, something that needs to be taken care of is that day to day. All right, so here's an example a little bit of the process from just a slide that I've used with my under 17 group. I think this was, I guess, yeah, in 2018. So a lot of people look at setting goals and look at success as being just like a straight line across. Very few people look at it actually as a staircase, or oscillating, so moving forward and back. So if we were to look, here's an example for where our guys in the Hockey Canada Program of Excellence are trying to work towards. Starting here at the U17 development camp, which is where this was presented, you're hoping to be selected as one of the individuals on either Team Red, White, or Black. And then from there, you hopefully get the opportunity to play for the under 18 team at the Hlinka Gretzky event. We lose sight of time. We don't have a great understanding of time or perspective. And I guess this is what this slide hopefully provides, is perspective for individuals. But you can also look at this in regards to where you're at in your career or timeline, or whether or where you are heading towards, or where you want to go. But if you look down here, right, this is the end of July. So realistically, every line here, every blue line represents a week. And within each week, you have a day. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days in this blue line. And then these gaps right here are a month. So for these guys, end of July to the World Challenge, they have 100 days to develop and get better. If you actually sit back and think of that, 100 days is a ton. Like you can think about how much work you can get done in a couple of days, right? And work in the sense of being a part of that process, doing something every day that gets you better. And it doesn't have to be intense. It could be going for a jog. It could be, like I said, reading a book, maybe watching a little bit of video. It could be doing some imagery here and there. It doesn't have to be this big, like, okay, today I have to work on this for 5 hours, for 4 hours. I mean, realistically, you can spend an extra 10 minutes to 30 minutes a day developing something, and you add that up, like 10 minutes here, for one day. So that's 7 days, so 70 minutes. Then you multiply that by however many weeks, and all of a sudden you've worked on something 10 minutes a day, but then that work adds up to, 70 hours that you put in over the time where you maybe worked on it once in a while. So I guess what this shows is you need to do a lot of a little things, not a little of a lot. Okay, so doing a lot of a little things that will help you get better, not big chunks once in a while. So hopefully that makes sense and doesn't confuse you too much. But understanding that there's going to be these little steps of success along the way, right? And then sometimes you might fall back, and then you might work on something, and all of a sudden, boom, you're up here, and some small wins along the way. Maybe there's a slight injury, so you back up a little bit, but then you take care of the injury properly. Now we're jumping ahead, and then you have a really great season or a couple great weeks, and then that turns into a couple good months, and those habits are more consistent. And then a little bit of a setback because maybe you're too tired, you push yourself too hard, but then you recover, and then all of a sudden you are at this point where you are trying out for the Hlinka group. So like I said, success isn't like here to there, straight across. Success is a staircase, and sometimes you're going to take a few steps back, and then maybe a couple large steps forward, and then a couple steps back. And this timeline is going to be different for everybody. Like we could have guys coming into the under 17 development camp as an invite, not make the under 17 World Challenge team, and not be seen again until World Juniors, and then they make the World Juniors team. So it's not necessarily written in stone that for some people it's going to be 6 months to 2 months or whatever to get to where they want to go. It could be years, and that's what the process is. It takes time, and it's not easy for some. So today, in order to help you out, we are going to go through something called the WOOP. If you were to have a piece of paper in front of you, which I hope you were, ready to take notes or to work on an activity as we go through this, this is a way you can divide your piece of paper. Throw your name on top, you can throw a date, And then simply as we go along, there's going to be 4 components to the activity, right? We are talking about goal setting. We are talking about trying to simplify and put a little bit more intention and purpose to what you're working on or what you're working towards. And this is a great approach in doing so. Okay. So once again, you can divide your sheet into 4 parts. So part 1, and I'll give you a minute or 2 to work on this, and you can come back to this and work on it after the webinar, but think about the next couple of weeks. Let's aim 3 to 4 weeks. We want to keep our time frames relatively short because we would probably want to reevaluate after 3 to 4 weeks in regards to whatever it is that you're working on. So the W stands for wish, as we can clearly see. A wish can also be seen as a goal. So what do you want to achieve in 2 to 3 weeks? Or 3 to 4 weeks, 2 to 3 goals. And these need to be realistic, right? So, you know, for someone who's just starting to practice long distance running, you know what, I want to go from running a couple kilometers to 20 kilometers. Well, that might not happen in a couple weeks. You might need to build up that a bit slower. Or somebody who, these are really generic examples to make a point and might be a little bit exaggerated, but maybe you're just starting to exercise and you're using dumbbells for bench press, and you know, maybe the first week you're using 25s or 30s, wherever you're at, and then you set a goal here that in a couple weeks I want to be benching 80s. Well, probably not realistic. So try to think of something that you can realistically achieve in the next couple of weeks. Maybe it's working out a certain number of times per week. Maybe it's going for a run so many times per week. It could be, I'm going to read this book in a couple weeks, or I want to read half a book in a couple weeks, or I want to maybe play less video games. I'm stuck in front of the TV. That's all I'm doing right now. Maybe I want to get outside a bit more over the next couple weeks with a bike ride or going for a jog or something along those lines. Okay. Now, part 2, you want to think about the outcome of achieving that goal. What would be the best feeling about it? What is it going to feel like working towards something? And write down the best outcome for each goal in 6 to 12 words if you can. So if goal number 1 is to, you know, I really want to read this book. You know, actually I have some examples of some great books, Embracing the Grind, right? Kind of a classic goaltending books right here, The Power Within. You know, maybe your goal is to read this book in 3 weeks. Well, how would it feel working towards it? Feel pretty good because I'm learning some different perspectives or learning a little bit more about my position. And at the end of the day, the outcome is I'm more knowledgeable and better prepared to be a goalie. Something generic, right? I'm just trying to keep it simple for everybody. Why am I picking books as a topic here? Easy to do, and I think we have the time to do it right now. Okay, so that could be the outcome. Now, imagine the best outcomes. Okay, imagine as fully as you can. Write down your thoughts. So, what are your thoughts about, you know, reading more books? How can this help you as a player, as an individual? Learn more about the game. Learn more about yourself. Right? What is this going to do for you at the end of the day? Okay. Now, now this is where a lot of goal setting typically stops, right? You'd have I'm bouncing around here, so stick with me. Part 1, you would write down your goals. Okay, and typically this is actually where it would stop. With this outcome, okay, makes sense, pretty standard, but where the magic happens with this approach is it's very realistic in understanding, you know what, there are going to be obstacles in the way. Okay, there are going to be things that get or become distracting for us. A lot of those are inner thoughts or inner obstacles or bad habits that creep in. So in order to have your wishes or your goals become true, you also need to address, you know, what obstacles do I have to overcome in order to make this happen? So right here, what is it within you that will hold you back? What in you might stop you? It might be an emotion, an irrational belief, a bad habit. Maybe your irrational belief is reading is boring. I'm not good at reading. I don't like reading. Books are stupid. Whatever it is, it's fairly irrational. Books are incredibly valuable. Um, they're not boring if it's interesting to you, right? If you care about goaltending, maybe reading a book like this is great, right? So I didn't write this. I'm not trying to like promote book sales here for myself or in any way, but what is your inner obstacle? Okay, so I could write here, for me, reading is challenging. Like I do, I'm a slow reader. So my inner obstacle is maybe I may find something else to do when I want to read. Or maybe I say, I'll read later, right? That's something I'll do. I'll read before bed, and then I go to bed and I just go to sleep. Maybe I would say, maybe I'll go for a run instead of reading, or something along those lines. So what's your main inner obstacle in 3 to 6 words? And once again, reflect on this obstacle. So take a moment, imagine it, write your thoughts down when you're thinking about it. So why am I procrastinating when it comes to reading? Why am I trying to put it off? Is it because I'm nervous? Is it because I don't understand what I'm reading? Is it because what's going on? So try to just get a little bit deeper into it if you can. Maybe once you think about this in a little bit more of a deeper way, you go, oh, this obstacle is actually kind of goofy. Like I feel a bit silly for thinking that. And, maybe I can overcome this and it's not that big of a deal if I just actually sit back, take a breath, and realize that it's actually not that difficult, or something along those lines. So this is where step 4, also more magic happens here, is the plan. Okay, so what can you do to overcome your obstacle? Identify one action. Okay, right, we're coming back to those 2 definitions, right? That behavior, that action you can take, or one effective thought you can think to overcome your obstacle. And then to iron it out, you can make the following plan. If I procrastinate with reading, then I will set a timer on my phone to read for 10 minutes. Okay. If I don't feel like going for a run, then I will make a playlist of my favorite songs and run to that playlist. And when that playlist is over, I'm done running. If I am maybe distracted by video games, then I will unplug my PS4 or Xbox, and then I will read for 15 minutes, something along those lines. It's an action or thought. Maybe if whatever obstacle happens, then I will think about how good it will feel being able to run a bit farther and how that's going to help me as an athlete. Once again, keeping it super generic, but this is where we encounter a lot of issues with goal setting. Is we set these goals, we have outcomes, but then we actually don't really make a plan for when we hit a wall, or when we don't feel maybe up to working on whatever we're working on or working towards. So this gets us thinking through it a little bit more in a deeper way, and helps us compare and kind of contrast what we are working on in a different perspective. So usually we would set SMART goals, saying, okay, what are you going to work on? Put a number in it, do this, do this, do this. But it doesn't have this layer of accepting that there may be an obstacle in the way. And then when that obstacle hits, what is my plan? So trying to keep this generic enough for everybody. But at the end of the day, the WOOP is a great approach to looking at our goals. Right now, images are a great way to convey a message. And right now, we might be feeling a little bit like this bottom guy, like the diamonds might be, our season ending. The diamonds might be the upcoming season, or whenever that is going to be, or opportunity to get on the ice in some capacity. But realistically, we need to be this guy on the top. Okay. And in this rubble, in this dirt, is COVID-19. It's not knowing when what's going to happen or start up. It's all these things we can't control. But your process, it's got to be this guy right here, chipping away day by day, slowly getting after it, working on something. Every time you pick up a book to read about hockey or about whatever, maybe it's even a book that's just, you know, fantasy, whatever it is, you're exercising your brain, you're chipping away at that rock little by little. You go for a jog, you're chipping away at that rock and that dirt little by little. Or your option is to take no action, to have no productive behaviors, and be the guy on the bottom, which has just gone, well, this all sucks. This is terrible. This isn't, this is brutal, whatever you could be thinking, which is absolutely okay to think that, because in times you will be thinking that potentially. But know that you can be the guy on top and have that option to continue to dig away little by little, because eventually you'll probably get to that jackpot and to where you want to be. And the last thought to think about behaviors and actions, this is probably something you're looking at going, why is there a piggy bank GIF on our screen right now? This is another perspective you can take. And this is something we've used with the University of Lethbridge Pronghorn Leadership Academy, and also I've used this with our Saskatoon Blades. We actually have a plastic little piggy bank, blue piggy bank in the locker room, and the piggy bank resembles your own personal bank and of a process, or it could be leadership skills, it could be work ethic. And every time you do something that goes into your process, you're putting money into that bank. Okay, so if you've been working really hard, if you've been a great teammate, if you've been a great student, you know, a good person, you're slowly putting more and more things into that bank, and you are getting money to spend, because there are times when, you know, you might be tired and you might not have a great practice. Well, that's going to take money out of your bank, but you still have some money in the bank to spend and gain capital or credibility. Okay, so for example, if this isn't making sense, I'll try to use this example. Hopefully it's a bit clear. As a captain, you want your bank to be as full as possible. Okay, as a leader on your team, you want that bank to be as full as possible. And this could come through work ethic. You know, the harder you work in practice, money's going into that bank. The better you treat people, money is going into that bank. How you handle adversity, money is going into that bank. We want more money. But if we start to complain, money's coming out of that bank. If you're being rude to teammates, money is getting out of that bank. If you are not practicing hard or not having a great attitude or effort, money is going out of that bank. And sometimes players, or there's individuals on teams that guys don't get along with, or individuals don't get along with. And maybe that's because they've spent all of their money in their bank. They show up late to practice. They don't work hard. They're a negative influence. They're not contributing in a positive way. And that's just one way to look at it. But for today's presentation, you can think of it as, okay, that piggy bank is you as an individual. And when you take care of the process, and when you have goals, and when you're working toward goals, you know, you're putting in a little bit more money every time. Every time you read 10 pages, you're putting in a little bit of money in your bank, into that knowledge bank. Every time you go for a jog, you're putting a little bit of money into that bank. Every time you are doing something to put yourself in a productive, positive way, you're putting money into that bank. Now, if you take a month off completely and don't do anything, I mean, nothing at all, just sitting on your couch playing video games, your bank is gradually seeping money, and it could be potentially empty at some point. So, you know, if you want to think of it that way, today I'm going to do this, this, and this. All right, I'm putting money in my bank. I like that. I like that. Cool, cool, cool. Then at the end of summer, or whenever our seasons get going, you can look back and look in your bank, and that thing could be potentially really, really full, or your bank could be completely empty. And that's not a great feeling to have. So I'll end it on that. And then I will just flip back here to just this, because at the end of the day, this is what we really worked on. Setting goals, imagining the outcome, imagining an obstacle, and then putting a plan in place in order to get going. or to help overcome the obstacle. So any questions? I see we have a question here. I don't know, how do we want to approach this, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking I could just ask them to you, and you don't have to read as much. So,
Sure.
well, great job, Josh, and I really like the piggy bank reference at the end. That's pretty good. But yeah, so Spencer Mitchnick has asked, how can we use WOOP to benefit specifically on the ice?
Well, that's a great conversation you can have with your coaches, right? Technically, what do you need to work on? And I think that's where it starts. So your goal is, I want to get specifically better doing this, working on this specifically. Okay, well, what's the outcome of becoming better on your pushes, on your skating? What's the benefit, or what's the outcome of working on your eye-hand coordination, right? Those kind of pieces. And then that is going to lead to the benefit on the ice. So whatever you're doing on ice, off ice, this is a way to think about what you're actually working on in order to, improve your game on the ice. So for an example, if we're looking at something you're working on, well, what are obstacles that are going to get in the way? Well, right now the obstacles are we don't have ice. Okay, well, how can we recreate that? How can we work on eye-hand coordination so that we can become or improve our ability to focus, so we become a better player on the ice? I hope that answers your question, but this is just a way to frame anything that you're working on ice skills, off ice skills, physical dry land skills, so that you have a clear picture of, okay, here's my goal, my wish, and then what's the outcome of that? What's going to be in the way? And then what's the plan for when this obstacle hits? Okay, I hope that makes sense.
It does. So I guess, Josh, even to further on that, so I think when it comes to the off season, and it's easier to focus on the process. When you get in season, how do you maintain focus on this as opposed to being focused on the outcome?
So we would really transition what our goals are. So instead of it maybe almost being always physical and technical, we can look at, okay, my goal is to get 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. That could be what we're trying to work on in order to improve performance. Well, what's going to be the outcome of that? I'm going to feel rested, have more energy, mentally I'll be sharper. What's going to be the obstacle? Well, the obstacle is probably going to be ice times. Obstacle is going to be a sporadic schedule. Obstacles are going to be travel. Okay, well, what's the plan going to be for when I am traveling, or when I do have a practice that ends at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night? How am I going to ensure that I am getting that rest that I need, being a high-performing athlete that is developing, and that's a youth, essentially? That's when we need the most sleep. So, it doesn't always have to be on ice. It doesn't always have to be physical. During the season, you can start to manage your non-hockey type stressors through using this approach as well. You can apply goals to school. What's the outcome? Well, better marks, better scholarship opportunity, better, less stress outside, obstacle, travel, plan, bring my homework with me, do it on the bus, that kind of stuff. So hopefully that works out as well for an answer.
That's a good answer. Okay, so I don't see any other questions in there. So feel free, guys, kind of speak now or forever hold your peace, I guess. So jump in with questions before I let Josh go here. But I think moving forward with these seminars, I think this probably will tie a lot into what I'll talk about on Thursday with having a development plan and how that can look. And this is the first that I've kind of seen specifically from this from Josh. But certainly we'll probably try to tie that in as best I possibly can into specifically a development plan for the individuals that rely, or that will touch a lot on the on-ice component, further on your question there, Spencer. But Josh, is there anything else in closing? I don't want to share your phone number like I saw Trevor Bauer's got shared on ESPN the other day, but certainly give you the opportunity to share ways that people can get in touch with you and utilize you and your expertise like you do with lots of your other clients.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Matt, is it possible that you can just send them an email? with some of the information and even a copy of this WOOP process in some capacity? Is that something
Absolutely.
we can
So
do? Or
we'll do that. As I see the people that are in here and everybody that's registered. So going forward, I guess Josh will share some of this WOOP stuff. He can share his contact information. Like I said, I know Josh does a lot of stuff with several goalies in Southern Alberta throughout the province, plus with Saskatoon and opportunities. I think that hope everybody can see the value in this presentation and see the value that Josh should hopefully bring to your games going forward.
yeah, absolutely. So I can put something together for you guys. Absolutely, for sure.
Okay, so I don't see any other questions coming in. So thank you everybody for attending. Like I said, we want to try to keep these as short as possible. I know that people do have, even though you're not doing much, you still have jam schedules with class and whatnot. So hopefully everybody's registered for the clinic on Thursday. I'll see everybody on Thursday. And like I said, expect an email shortly from myself and from Josh. See everybody soon. Talk to you later.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt.